All right. So, welcome, Matthew.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. So, Matthew is from Automation Wolf, and he's going to share with us a lot of his sales strategies and tips that we can basically use to navigate during this coronavirus time, post COVID. All of these things that can help to enhance your customer experience and also for you to not be discouraged, even though people's spending power may be less, but you still want to keep top of mind in the hearts and minds of your customers, and also be able to recruit new customers during this time. So we're speaking with the expert himself, and so Matthew, I would like for you to share with us a little bit about how you got on this journey of sales and automation. And I'm curious to know what inspired you to call your company Automation Wolf. Is there a direct correlation between wolves and sales?
Hopefully not. I mean, I think wolves always kind of have a bit of a negative connotation. Honestly, the reason it was named Automation Wolf was I was just looking for something really easy to spell and something easy to remember. It was really that
Okay.
simple. And at the time when the company started, it was very heavy automation.
Mhm.
And those were the main reasons, honestly. It could have been Automation Monkey. It could have been automation anything, really, to tell you the truth. So I don't get super hung up on names. My only criteria is that it's easy to spell, easy to remember, and that I can get the TLD of the .com. So
Mhm.
I'd like
Makes
for
sense.
everyone to think that there was more to it than that, but there really wasn't.
Okay. All right. So tell us how you got into sales.
Well, I've been selling for a long time now. So I probably started selling in 2014-ish. I mean, 2004-ish
Mhm.
is when I started selling. And I started off the old school way, which was like door-to-door sales.
Mhm.
And so I learned how to literally, go door to door and speak to people and learn how to close deals. And then I moved on to telemarketing, and then I moved on to sort of doing digital marketing and sales that way. But it's been a long, long journey.
All right. So a lot of businesses now are, they may have been offering sales to their customers in, let's say, the face-to-face kind of experience, what we're accustomed to, where
Yeah.
you go and knock on people's doors or you set up meetings, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Now they want to move to a digital type of experience and they still want to be able to sell digitally.
Hmm.
How does that transition, look? How do you make that transition?
Sure. Yeah. So I've been selling digitally for many, many years. So I always tell people I've already been quarantined for the last 13 years. This is not something new for me at all.
Right.
And so one of the first things that I discovered when I started my first digital marketing agency, which was 2010, and I was making little videos to communicate with my clients and customers way back when. And that's a lot of times how I would get a lot of my clients is I'd find someone who was in the vertical that I was targeting, or I had a case study, and I would send them a quick little. At the time, the tool I used was Camtasia, and
Mm.
it's still a tool today, but there's a
Mhm.
lot of other tools that are inexpensive and free, like Loom Video, which is just a Chrome add-on. And I would make a little video of myself talking and showing them on their website or showing them within Google. It was usually Google, of how they're missing out by not either running ads or by not, having their website rank on the first page, whether it was within Google Maps or within the organic search.
Mhm.
And that was just such a great way to communicate and demo something or show someone, kind of how it worked. But the biggest response I'd always get from people is like, the first thing they would say is, "That's so cool. How did you make that video?" Right. And so here's the cool thing is that, you know, you can communicate so much better when you use video, because sales at the end of the day is when we're speaking to people, is a lot of like listening, but at the
Mhm.
same time there's also a lot of body language that's taking place, right? We
Sure.
communicate way more with what we're doing. And so if you can get into a format like this with Zoom or with using Loom, it's a great way to sell today, that you don't have to see people in person. I mean,
Mhm.
it's been working for years. This is not something new. So I'm always surprised when people are like, "How do I do that?" It's like, no, this is not new. It's forcing you to finally do the thing that you're supposed to be doing.
Yes, it's very new for a lot of people, let me tell you. And especially here in Jamaica,
Right.
we are like social beings where we like to literally interface with each other, sit
Yeah.
down and see each other. So it's definitely a new sphere of business operation for lots of
Yeah.
organizations who have sales representatives or advisors who go out and pretty much seek business on their behalf.
Yeah.
People are accustomed to literally seeing people sit in front of them, but you're right. It's actually it's more costing, I think, for you to physically go and see someone. You can
Hmm.
be more productive and you manage your time better if it is that you're doing these things virtually. And the video gives you the same kind of experience, as you said, with the body language and being able to see the person's facial expressions. The only thing is there's no touch and feel because
Yeah.
you are there and I am here.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, culture's a big thing. I mean, so there's a lot of different cultures and communities where this is, the norm is to be in person. Like even if you look at all of the Middle East, right, or Dubai,
Mhm.
like there's like generations of hundreds of years that you do business in person, and there's a whole
Mhm.
formality to doing it, right? Whether it's through breaking bread or tea or whatever that may look like, right?
Right.
And even here too, like in North America, same thing. Like lots of deals get brokered all the time over dinner, on the golf course, the private ski club, like whatever that thing is. You're never going to replace the human to human element, but this kind of video work works pretty good. I mean, here I am in Toronto, Canada, and where are you today right now?
I'm in Kingston, Jamaica.
Right? So, I mean, like that's pretty amazing, right? I mean, this feels it's not as good if we were in the same room, but it's pretty darn close.
Yeah, it is. All right, Matthew. Why is it important for a business to generate leads and have a pipeline full in your business? Just share with us a little bit about that whole sales process. Because I know we do have a lot of people who will listen to this video and would want to know, doing it digitally,
Mm.
especially, how is it that you're going to be able to fill your pipeline from a digital perspective?
Sure. So it doesn't matter what business that you're in if you don't, particularly if it's B2B, we talk a lot about prospects or sales pipeline, but I think if you're B2C, it's more about customers and really at that point, instead of you calling it a sales pipeline, you would call it a database or an audience or a community, right?
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, the point is if you don't have, you know, um, a group of people who uh, are getting to know you and your relationship with, and they can buy from you in a controlled format, you really just don't have a business. So
Yeah.
if I take specifically just like B2B, all businesses follow the same sort of three pillars. And
Mm-hmm.
a big mistake a lot of people make is they're focused on something that's not important right now. And so I see a lot of times people doing a lot of what I call busy work or work that's not useful. And I always kind of joke around and say, well, that's really the entrepreneur. The entrepreneur will go out and get some new business first before they try to create stuff. The entrepreneur will be, let's say you do design work, graphic design work or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, the entrepreneur will spend a month designing their own logo and trying to get their website all done. The entrepreneur won't bother doing any of that, but will go get a new client. Right?
True.
And that's a difference because you don't if you don't have leads, then you don't have sales. If you don't have sales, well then
You have no
you
business.
you have no business to develop it. And if you don't have any business to develop, you've got nothing to optimize or hire on, or optimize or sell one day. So the lead domino to all of this is always getting some sort of prospects or building a list or an audience or a community that you can engage with, right?
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that, the next step is earning some trust with that group of people. And usually, if you have trust, even if you suck at sales, you'll probably sell something, right? So I think that's the logical thing. Is like go find a group of people that you can build some trust with, and then you'll be able to sell something and you'll get better, right? I mean, whatever you do is not like the websites I build today versus the websites I built 10 years ago. Of course, they're a lot better today. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you're naturally going to get better. So you don't have to worry about those things, but some people worry about the wrong things. So lead
Yeah.
gen and a full pipeline is essential to success. Otherwise, you end up having like this, a lot of people build their businesses off of inbound marketing or referrals. Most of the time it's referrals. However,
Mhm.
the problem with that is it's very inconsistent, and you can't build a sustainable business that way, because here's what happens is, if you get busy at some points and then other times you're totally not busy, right? And
Right.
that's a lot of stress to have that. And so until you figure out how to continually fill your pipeline, you're going to continue to keep going through this feast and famine experience, or have this anxiety, right? Even
Mhm.
if you're doing prospecting, I see a lot of times, sometimes people, okay, they go, I'm going to do prospecting, or I'm going to run ads, or I'm going to take more control over this. But then they do this start and stop thing. And so then they go through this roller coaster ride again, because,
Mhm.
you start prospecting, you get a couple clients, and then you start fulfilling them. So you stop your prospecting, and then the pipeline dries up, and then you got to do it all over again, right? And so it's just this constant roller coaster ride, and that's not fun either. So you really
Yeah.
have to figure out a way to do it in a predictable way. And there's lots of tactics and things that you can do, but it needs to be specific and evergreen, and ideally not involve you or your team. And that's why I'm very pro automation. It's not perfect, but it solves that problem of humans, being inconsistent, right?
Mm. So
So
share with us then, Matthew, a little bit about the automation process. Um, let's use, since we started, your example was a graphic designer. Let's use a
mhm,
graphic designer business as an example.
sure.
If he or she's a graphic designer and they are looking to consistently fill their pipeline, because one of the things I heard you say just now is prospecting is something that has to be doing. You have to be doing it consistently. It can't be
Yeah,
a thing where you do it, this month, and as you said, you get clients now and you fulfill those customers, and then by the time those jobs are finished, okay, the pipeline is dried up, so I have to start the process all over again. How
yeah,
can I put this in an automated way that reduces my physical injection of this activity
yeah,
constantly, but I'm always having people in the pipeline as a graphic designer?
totally. Yeah, it's a great question. So there's a lot of different tactics and things that you can do. However, like the first thing I would do is get sort out some of the foundation things, which most people don't do. So if I was a graphic designer, I'd figure out, like, well, who's my ideal client? And don't tell me small businesses or everyone, or you got to get really, really specific in a specific niche, right? So like, do you do
Mhm.
graphic design for coaches? Is it for manufacturing companies? Is it literally for SaaS companies, or a specific type of SaaS, like B2B SaaS? Like, figure out what that looks like first, because
Mhm.
once you do that, then you can point to a lot of other different case studies that give you some leverage as being the
Mhm.
expert, because people want to buy one from the expert. They don't want to buy from a generalist, right?
True.
Like if you're having, let's say you're having heart problems, do you want to go see your general physician, or do you want to go see the leading heart surgeon in your area, right? I mean, it's just like non-negotiable. Well, that heart attack feeling, or where you feel like you're going to die, that's how people feel about their businesses. It's life
Mhm.
or death. And
Mhm.
so they're not interested in messing around with a generalist, right? They want the best. And
Yeah.
so if you can niche down, that immediately kind of gives you some positioning where you can become the best with lots of case studies. It also allows you to maybe eventually think about how you can start to repurpose some of your work at a lower cost, right?
Mm.
So if you're a graphic designer for dentists, well, how many times do you have to redesign the dentist website, right? I understand each logo might be different. There might be little things that are different, but if you get a website that's converting very well for them, because they're not looking to buy a website, they're looking to get new customers, new leads, right?
Right.
And they,
Right.
they don't, what a good one looks like is very subjective. And most of them, if you really sit down and talk to them, they're looking at buying the outcome of driving more business and more revenue, not the outcome of, I want my website to be beautiful, right? Like, so you have like, so, but my point is, like, once you get one that's converting really well, you have a nice little funnel for dentists that generates leads and sales for them in a predictable way. Well, you don't need to keep redesigning it over and over and over again, right? I mean, you can do just little tweaks to personalize it for each brand, but that saves you a lot of time and effort and money. So now you can just focus on scaling and selling that or handing it off to someone else, which gives you the leverage for the business. So you first need to figure out like what's the niche and where you're going to go, because the riches are in the niches. In Canada, we say niche, and the rest of the world, but in America, we say niche. I think the only reason they say niche is so they can actually they can use that alliteration, that rhyme, that the riches are in the niches. So
Oh,
because it doesn't work with the riches are in the niches, right?
right, right.
So yeah, so get your niche down, and then once you get it down, what's really great, the most easy thing is your customers or clients are usually not invisible. So what I mean by that is if you know you're going to target dentists or chiropractors or personal injury lawyers, or maybe it's SaaS companies, well, now you know who it is, and you can go very easily today, go find the contact information of those businesses. I mean, just with LinkedIn and Sales Navigator, it makes it so easy today to figure out who owns the company and who's running it, or whether it's Google Maps. Google's your friend. I mean, just jump on Google and you can find some of this information. There's also a lot of tools or databases you can buy this information. And so if
Hmm.
you know who they are, now you can create a predictable way to get in front of them, right?
Yeah.
So, which is usually like cold email or direct, cold outreach via LinkedIn is the easiest strategy to go about doing that, right? And there's a
Hmm.
lot of different ways to get them to open your emails and reply, but that's the gist of it. Is that's where I would start,
Hmm.
because it's very inexpensive, the costs are low, and you can set it up in a predictable way to generate new pipeline for you, right? And you
Right,
can
right.
automate a lot of these pieces.
Okay. All right. So, good example. If you are a B2B that usually sells to customers in your country and you're looking to expand online, what
Mm-hmm.
are 3 steps that you could take? As I said, that's a real thing here in Jamaica where, companies are looking to scale and they're just looking at what their options are in terms of offering their products or services to customers who are outside of Jamaica but would fit the same kind of profile of somebody that resides in Jamaica in terms of their buying behavior or specific needs. What would be 2 to 3 steps that you think they should take as a sales expert?
So I just want to clarify the question. So they're selling outside of Jamaica, like in other places of the world. Is that right?
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
they want to target customers in Toronto or they
yeah.
want to target customers in New York,
Yeah, well, I think it would be the same process as what I just talked about, is build a strategic list,
Mm-hmm.
and then you need to find a way to build a relationship with that list. So the mistake that everybody makes is they try to pitch, right? They do cold outreach and then they try to sell their stuff.
Mm.
But the reality is, most of the time when you do that, um, you're a stranger, and stranger means danger, right? I mean, our parents teach us this since we're 3 years old,
That's true.
right? I mean, and I teach to my kids. I've got, 12, 10, and 8. I still tell them, like, hey,
You
some
don't talk to
weirdo.
people you don't
Yeah.
know.
So yeah, is there some weirdo over there? You can pay attention to what's going on around you, kid, right? You're gonna get snatched up. Don't go with the creepy guy in the van kind of thing, right? But I
Yeah, yeah.
mean, that's how people feel about you when you do cold outreach. And then, if you're already from a different country, right, that makes it even harder, right?
Yeah,
Because it's easier. Like if I reach out from Toronto, someone in Toronto, there's at least like, oh, at least they're from Toronto. But all of
right.
a sudden,
Like
it's someone from
commonality.
Jamaica. Yeah, someone from Jamaica is like, you know, who's that? Like, oh, yeah, whatever.
Mhm.
So then you got to get the messaging right. So you have to remember, like, you can't sell your services when someone doesn't know you. So you got to come up with a good offer where they can get to know you, right? Because we only buy from people we know, like, and trust. That's
True.
that's always the case. So your goal is to the step one to that journey. Like you can't start selling until you have trust. And
Mhm.
the mistake that people make is they try to start selling before they have trust. But the order it goes in is they can't trust you if they don't like you, and they can't like you if they don't know you.
Mhm.
So if you do a cold outreach, the first thing is like, how do I get them to know me? Well, there's lots of things that you can do, but the easiest one is to create some sort of environment where you can build a community, and that community can be online or offline. Now,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, if you're in Jamaica and someone's in Toronto, you can't do it offline. Like, you're not going to go have a mastermind dinner or run an event. It's just, I mean, maybe you'd be like, hey, come on out to, I mean, there's a lot of people who love to fly to Jamaica and do a conference or something like that, but you
Right.
still don't have that relationship yet to really make that ask, right?
True.
So I would do it digitally at this point, but an easy way of doing that is by just offering some sort of private community where like-minded people get to hang out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So usually birds of a feather like to flock together. And so if
Mm-hmm.
you, let's say you're selling to CTOs in Toronto, well, other CTOs want to hang out with other CTOs. And so you
Mm-hmm.
could create a Facebook group, a Slack group, a LinkedIn group. You could get your own software for it. You could create like a very specific, like, private Zoom mastermind thing that you do once a month and you host it. But the
Mm-hmm.
point is, it's something that looks interesting to them where you're not selling them their stuff, right? And everyone likes to belong to something that's private. That's why we belong to the private yacht clubs or ski clubs and private supper clubs and so forth. I mean, Richard Branson has his own island, right? I mean, and people pay from Virgin Airlines, and people pay hundreds of thousands of dollars just to go there for a weekend to knob hop with the wealthy and elite, right?
Sure.
So it can work for you. You don't necessarily need to exist on that same playing field, but the point is, if you make that offer, that's a good place. And then what you're doing when you do that is you're building community and audiences, and then you can start doing more one-to-many selling so that they can get to know you,
Mm-hmm.
like you, and trust you, right? And if you pay attention to the biggest brands in the world, the people who've done this, this is what they're doing. So just look at Oprah. That's what she's done. Look at
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Phil. Look at Tom from Impact Theory. Look at, I mean, I can go on and on and on. You can look at Tim Ferriss, right? I mean, there's so many examples. At the end of the day, you're technically doing this right now. So
Yeah.
you have a group, and then here's what you're doing is you're interviewing other experts and bringing them in, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
what ends up happening is you end doing what Oprah's done. Oprah's not an expert at anything, right? But what's she really good at doing? She's really good at bringing in experts and asking them questions to teach her community what to look for and what to look out for, right?
Yeah.
And then here's what ends up happening is it becomes like Oprah's right here, and then there's like expert, and then there's like Oprah, and then expert, and then Oprah and expert, Oprah and expert. Well, the experts come and go, but the only thing that everybody remembers is Oprah. And
True.
and because she's done that, she's built so much trust, right? Trust equity,
Mm-hmm.
that at the end of the day, she can make a withdrawal from that bank anytime she wants, right? So like, trust equity is worth more than real money. Because
Yeah.
look, if Oprah went on Twitter right now and she's like, hey, there's this really awesome company, they're in Jamaica. I love them. They're really struggling because of COVID. But they just put up their new website. It'd be awesome if you guys could support them. Here's what the product is about, right? And then we go from
It was
surviving, barely surviving, to
the
thriving.
thriving
Yeah,
in minutes,
in,
seconds.
in seconds, like overnight. Exactly. So
True.
you can do that too. I mean, I'm not going to say you're going to be Oprah, but you want to do your own version of that for yourself, right? And it doesn't have to be big. I mean, I've seen amazing communities that only have 50 people in them that are super amazing.
Mhm.
It does, you don't need to have 50 million people, 50,000 people, 5,000 people, 500 people. You can do a lot with just 50 or 100 people. So you got to
Yeah,
start, and you got to start somewhere. Now,
I
once
agree.
you do that, obviously you can sell whatever you want. Like, you could be the worst salesperson in the world, but because you have trust, you'll close deals,
Yeah,
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Agreed. Trust is really, really important,
Really.
and it's
Yeah.
it's it's a foundation of relationships. When people can rely on you, you're a credible source. As you mentioned, where Oprah is concerned, she's not
Yeah.
bringing on people that are, criminals or people who are, their integrity is not up to par. She's clearly done her research on these
Yeah.
people because she's bringing the best to the platform to share this information with her audience. So if you
Yeah.
can establish that kind of trust with your community, then they look to you for that kind of advice. And so
That's right.
when they need that kind of input to make a decision, you are who comes as top of mind. Because as you said, it's Oprah and the other person, and the one person that's consistent is always Oprah. So we could do that for ourselves as well in our own businesses.
That's right. It's a very powerful strategy. It gives you leverage in a lot of ways because what you're actually doing is you're leveraging OPA. So everyone knows what OPM is. OPM stands for other people's money, and that's great
Mhm.
too. Leverage other people's money where you can, or the bank's money. It's smart. But
Right.
OPA stands for other people's audiences and other people's authority.
Ah.
So everybody's trying to be the expert, right? And that's like, honestly, it's not a good use of your time. It's
Mhm.
better for you to just borrow someone else's expertise and authority and their audiences. It's the fastest way to kind of up your own brand and up your own trust. And
Mhm.
the great news is when you ask the interview people, it's ego bait. They almost always say yes. Like, didn't I say yes? It's like, yeah, I got a big fat head. I have a big ego. I can't wait to be featured. Right. So,
Mhm.
but that's the case with most people is if you say, hey, I'd love to spotlight you, you can attract really amazing people. And therefore your trust equity and brand and expertise all gets to level up because we transfer all of that authority and all the audiences to you in the process. So, and then you
Right.
don't have to create your content anymore. You can take this video and you can slice it and dice it. You can turn it into snackable meme videos, into audiograms. You can transcribe it into a blog post,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you can repurpose it and remix it across all the different social channels. So, like it's kind of a win-win. Like it just makes like the most logical thing to do. And then every once in a while, you can just say, hey, if you are looking for, graphic design help, I'm happy to do that. We've got a little special going on right now. Or even better, when your audience gets big enough, you get positioning where you can say, hey, I'm only taking on 2 new clients this month. I have a group here of 1,000 people. If you're interested in us doing the work for you, here's some of our results. You can apply here. And then how
Mhm.
much better would it be when people are applying to work with you versus you begging them, please let me work for you, instead of the other way, you flip the switch, and that's the power of what this does, right? Now,
Yeah.
obviously, you have to give a lot to do that and build a lot of goodwill, but it's not hard. Like if you're a graphic designer, like why not start off with a create a group and then once a week give away like a done template for you, right? So you
Mhm.
could say, hey, here's a YouTube cover video for all your YouTube videos, and you can put it in Canva and use it here. By the way, if you don't like doing this stuff because most people are technophobes, right? You say, I'm happy to do it for you. Just
Mhm.
reply back and I'll do it for you. But here's the asset if you want to do it yourself, right? And then next month you'd be like, hey, here's something you want to think about when you're designing logos. Here's 3 things you want to think about. Here's my swipe file of what I think are the very best logos in the world. You can just download it here for free. And then the week after, you can be like, okay, cool. Here's a background image that you need for your Twitter to stand out.
Mhm.
Here's some things to think about. If you want, you can have it. If you don't want to do this, why don't you just reach out to me and I'll do it for you, right?
Right.
Or here's what you want to think about thank you pages. Nobody ever thinks about the design of their thank you pages.
Mhm.
Is this happening on your thank you page? If not, here's some ideas that you could put on there. By the way, if you want some help designing your thank you pages to get more out of them, why don't you reach out to me and I'd be happy to set it up for you. You know what I mean? Like it's just so simple. Like because you're building goodwill and being helpful, people just naturally end up wanting to buy from you because they just go,
Yeah.
wow, the stuff you gave away for free was so amazing. Imagine what I'm going to get when I actually pay for it.
Right. Right. Very
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's the automatic human thought for real.
I think
Okay.
so. Yeah.
Now, selling is hard, and sometimes you get 20 no's before you get one yes. What is your advice to someone in sales or even an entrepreneur that does their own selling? How can they stay motivated?
Yes, that's a great question. So I was lucky because my background was theater, and so I
Mhm.
did a lot of auditioning, and
Oh gosh.
so
And you,
auditioning is all no's, right? And it's really personal. It's because it's you, right? So
mhm.
so I think there's a couple things that you need to first recognize. So if you're getting a lot of no's, you got to figure out like why you're getting those no's, right?
Mhm.
And so, like I said, you may not actually have a sales problem. You just might have a lead gen problem. And then if you have a lead gen problem, you might just actually have like a trust problem or a system problem or a process problem. So you have to figure out, like, is it a system problem? Is it an offer problem? Is it a product problem? Or is it like a me problem? Like some people are really have no social skills whatsoever. They're socially
Mhm.
inept. Like, we've all met those people, right? They just have challenges of not being relatable,
Mhm.
which is a different problem. So one is you have to figure out what is it that's causing the no's for you,
Mhm.
and then you can dial into kind of fixing that. However, a couple quick ways to get more yeses than nos is what I already shared with you: is build trust. If you have trust,
Right.
if you have trust, you could be terrible at sales,
Mhm.
and you'll still close deals. But two, the other solution is spend more time listening and asking questions.
Mhm.
Okay, especially at the beginning, before you do lots of talking. So the old adage is, God gave you 2 ears and one mouth, use it accordingly, right?
So true.
And so those people who listen to people and are curious at the beginning, people tend to like you more because you listen to them. Like, how
Mhm.
many times have you gone out and hung out with someone before, went to a party? You just ask people lots of questions. At the end, they're like, "Oh my God, you're so amazing! I just love you." And they didn't ask you one question. They just love you
Because
because
they were able to talk.
they're able to talk, right? So just let people talk, and then usually after they've talked a lot, it gives you a lot of ammunition and power, right? Like, those people who ask a lot of questions actually gather all the intel of knowing kind of what makes that person tick. But what you need to be able to do is you need to be able to summarize what they just said very quickly.
Mhm.
And the way when you're able to summarize it in a couple sentences at the end, then you're able to describe someone's problems better than they can describe it themselves, and that
Mhm.
immediately gives you more trust. So
Mhm.
if you can summarize something really well, like, hey, it sounds like, hey, Charles, it sounds like, you're looking for a very simple way to generate more leads without having to spend any, money on advertising dollars, right? And
Mhm.
something that's very low effort for you and your team because you're too busy doing this other thing.
Mhm.
Does that sound, and they're gonna be like, that's right. And you say, okay, cool. Well, that's the kind of thing I eat for lunch every single day. And then you can roll into, selling the thing that you're selling. But if you
Right.
don't do that first, it's not going to work. Now,
Mhm.
for getting the answers of no, I mean, you know, I think, like, I understand there's a lot of anxiety and people get upset about getting no. I have a couple of responses for that. Some, the kids glove version is, you know, it's probably a process problem, has nothing to do with you. So try not to take it personally.
Mhm.
But the put my big boy pants on answer is like, get over it, like, suck it up, like, suck it up, buttercup. Like, that nose is a part of the process. And if you can't handle no as being a salesperson or an entrepreneur, you're not going to make it very far, right? Maybe you shouldn't be in sales or be an entrepreneur.
It's just a part of the game. You part
It's
of
a
playing the game.
part of it. I mean, come on, right? I mean, sometimes getting more no's is how you learn. Like,
Yeah.
you have to fail. You got to have a thick skin. Like, that's just kind of how you learn. And I guess if it's painful enough and you're willing to figure out what you did wrong and keep failing forward, eventually you'll find your own process for it. And the biggest thing too is just get mentors, get coaches, and invest in yourself to get better.
Yeah.
So few people spend any money doing this stuff, and it's really, really important that you do. Like, when I
Mhm.
tell people how much I spend every year on, like, personal development and courses and stuff, like, it blows their mind. They're just like, what? And I've been doing that consistently for, well over a decade. Like, people think
Mhm.
they go to school and they're done. It's like, you're not done. And you don't have to do it expensively. There's podcasts and books. Like, I'm looking over at my bookshelf here of, like, hundreds of books. I'm reading books every single month.
Mhm.
Some of it's old stuff and stuff that I've heard because I've read so many, but you never know where a good idea is going to come from. You gotta keep pushing hard. So Most people just don't. Like, they don't realize we're the sum of our daily habits, right? I mean, like, you don't go to the gym and bench press 200 pounds. You go to the gym and you don't, you go to the gym once and do it. It's like you got to go consistently.
Yeah.
It's
Everything, any form of
everything.
quality that you want to achieve
Yeah,
requires a high level of consistency.
that's right. Exactly. And I'm not saying that you need to like be bananas, and it doesn't need to be hustle nation and you don't have a life working 15 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's totally unnecessary.
Mhm.
But you need to be consistent, and it doesn't require actually very much. But
Yeah.
even 15 minutes a day is great. And in fact, I always encourage people when they're trying to find consistency is almost engineer it so that you cannot fail. And the reason why you want to do that is because we're really dumb as humans. Like, we just move towards pleasure and away from pain. Like, we're just so simple. Like, we
Mhm.
literally might as well be a crocodile. Like, we're not that bright. We think we're bright. We tell ourselves, oh yeah, you're so smart. But no, we're dumb. We're so dumb. And so if you engineer success, then like little tiny wins, then you move towards it because it's pleasurable.
Mhm.
But if you make your goals too big, then what ends up happening is you experience pain and it makes you want to stop and run the other way, right?
Mhm.
So and that's just a normal thing to do. Like, it'd be really weird if you didn't know. We are programmed that way, and that's why we're still alive after hundreds of thousands of years, because we know, oh geez, lion chasing me is bad, right? Safety is over there up tree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we just know, like, you can't overwrite that auto system in the back of your brain. I mean, it's literally called the lizard brain, the croc brain. You can study it in psychology. It
Mhm.
exists, and that's the first thing we always react with all the time. It takes a lot of things for us to get down to the critical thinking part of our brain.
Yeah.
And very rarely do we make any decisions that way at all for ourselves, right? Like,
Mhm.
we make emotional decisions, and then we justify it later on with our critical logical brains. But that's not actually what drove the decision making. It's
Mhm.
always pleasure, and we move away from pain, right?
Mhm.
So figure out what that is, and give yourself little wins so you can actually succeed. Like, the problem is, if people get a whole bunch of no's, that's why they don't want to sell. And that's why they curl up in a ball and cry. And you know,
Just keep pushing. Keep pushing.
yeah, or just find little wins. Like, instead, like pick stuff that you can win, or reframe it, right? That it feels like a win. So instead of like trying to close the sale, just instead try to have more conversations, right?
Mhm.
Like, and if you just reframe it like that, if you literally, like, that's always tell people, like, stop thinking about, you don't want leads and sales. What you want is a larger community and more trust equity.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, if you lead with that, you actually do all the right things, and the byproduct is you get more leads and sales,
True.
because
Agreed.
because you're not a dick, right? A dick is someone who's trying to get leads and sales. Like,
Mhm.
part of my French, but like someone who's trying to close people. No one wants to be closed.
Mhm.
Like that doesn't feel very good. Like, it's
No.
sleazy and slimy, right? But if you lead with like, no, I'm looking to build a bigger community and network and make things better, and I'm looking to build trust equity. Now your mindset's completely different, right?
Mhm.
And
So your
and
approach will be different as well.
yeah, you approach everything different, and what ends happening is you end up kind of getting what you wanted to get, because you're doing something bigger than yourself, right? Like, we don't buy what people do, we buy why they do it, right?
True.
We can always sense this from people. We know when you're trying to close, and then when you're trying to close sales, what ends up happening is you get that thing that's called commission breath,
Mm.
right? And no one likes commission breath. It's worse than bad breath, right? And
For sure.
because you can smell it. They're like, oh, this person's just trying to close me and upsell me and
Mhm.
sell me. Like, you can just feel it and sense it.
Yeah.
And there's some snakes out that are super smooth, but even then, like, eventually the world's gonna like catch up to you. But if that's not the intention, right, then all of a sudden that commission breath goes away, and you just become like an awesome you become your best self, like who you really probably deserve to be.
Mhm.
And I don't think that you should take that away from yourself or other people, Because at the end of the day, I mean, life is short, and like we're really here to help people and move things forward. And if you can help someone, then it's not salesy, right? I
No.
mean, you kind of almost have a duty to help that person. Like, it would be, it's, and this is the reality. Here's what happens is people close people when they shouldn't close people, and it's because they need sales or don't have enough leads, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they end up with the wrong clients, and then it becomes all kinds of other problems. It's bad for the client, bad for you. But if you had lots of leads, or you had lots of trust, or you had lots of community where that wasn't a problem,
Mm-hmm.
you'd be really specific about who you partner and collaborate with.
Yeah.
And it becomes more of a collaboration choice. Like, is it a good fit for the both of you?
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a good fit for the both of you, then it's just not sales. And then it's not about no's or yeses. You're just sorting. Like, you're just sorting people in different piles. And
Mm-hmm.
your goal should be, even if it's not a good fit for you at this time or whatever, you should still try to help them get where they're trying to go.
Right.
So then it's no longer a no, and you're in control because you're then cherry picking the right people. But the problem is, like, again, like, people think they have a sales problem, but they don't have a sales problem. They have a lead gen problem. And then the people think they have a lead gen problem. They don't have a lead gen problem. They really have a strategy problem. And
Mm.
then when they think they have a strategy problem, they don't really have a strategy problem. They really actually have a mindset problem, right?
Right. So it's really to just get extremely granular, get down to what is the obstacle that's preventing you from moving from one stage to the next. Because if you
Yeah,
get clear on that, then you'll be able to move forward much quickly and things will run smoother.
that's right. Yeah, there's a system called the 5 whys. I don't know
Mhm.
who did it. You can Google it. There's someone who's much smarter than me who came up with it. But it's the same with sales and objections. Like, when you get an objection, it's the first objection you get is never the real objection. You gotta
Mhm.
you gotta re-clarify and dig down 3 or 4 times before you get to the real objection of why someone's concerned about not moving forward. But it's the
Mhm.
same thing with, like, your own life and your own business. Like, you have to, like, so when someone, like I said, when you say, "Oh, I have a sales problem, I need more sales." Well, why? Right?
Mhm.
I don't know. We just don't have enough leads. Okay, well, why? Why do you not have leads? Because our strategy is not very good. Okay, well, why is your strategy not very good?
Mhm.
Because we just don't. We're kind of just like another beige company. We have no positioning. We kind of seem like everybody else. Like, okay, but why? Well, it's because, we don't really, like, have a mission. We haven't picked a vertical. We're not specific. So it becomes like a mindset thing, right? But
Mhm.
why? Like, so if you keep asking, if you ask why five times, all of a sudden you start to get to the root cause of what's going on. It's kind of like that iceberg thing. Like, everybody's always, like, trying to treat the tip of the iceberg, but if you really look under the water, there's another 80% there, which is the root cause. And what we got to get to is figure out the root causes. And when we do that, we also end up finding, oh, there's not, like, a lot of things that we need to do. There's just, like, one major lever that we need to figure out, and then boom, the business kind of takes off, right? We always overcomplicate it. Like, even today, I think for some people, when they go, you know what, I'm going to stop thinking about leads and sales, I'm going to start thinking about building community and trust equity, that will change their lives and their business forever,
Mhm.
immediately.
Yeah.
Like, even if you look at Oprah, if you watch some of her documentaries and things like that online, and how she had a mission statement for her show. I can't remember specifically what it was, but it was I believe it was something along the lines of, like, she wanted to change the way people think, like, have these aha moments, right? Where they fundamentally, it changes their lives. And that was her mission. And it was triggered from a book that she had read and that other people were not reading. And she took that book and turned it into a bestseller. And that was one of her goals, was to take this unknown book. She couldn't believe that nobody knew about it, and turn it into a bestseller around the world. And she did. And so her mission wasn't to be a famous talk show host, or to have the highest ratings,
Mhm.
or any of these other things. None of that stuff was important to her.
But those things were the result based on what her why was.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Just like Simon Sinek says, you got to start with why, right?
Mhm.
So
Agreed.
why? Yeah. Cool.
Okay, Matthew, can you share with us some other digital platforms that you think B2Bs can sell on, and what should they use as a guide to decide what platform they should be selling on?
Sure. Well, they should definitely be on LinkedIn if you're a B2B. Like
And
it's
this
a
is
no.
not specific to country, right? You don't think B2B selling is specific to like first world countries versus developing countries. You think this is just general?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about every country, what's going on. I mean, I really should only say if it's English speaking and, some of the first world countries, I'm guessing LinkedIn would work well.
Hmm.
I'm not sure how it's working in other countries, to tell you the truth, or different languages. My sense is that it's still effective, and even if not, it's probably coming to
Right.
there, so you'd be a bit, you could get ahead of the bell curve. Like if you can become an influencer and build a community or a following or an audience there, that would be smart. I mean, any way that you can expand your network, right, on however you do that where you are. And what I always tell people is figure out where your ideal client hangs out and
Right.
go there, right? So if that's not LinkedIn and it's somewhere else, well, go to that other thing. Like don't
Hmm.
don't make things harder for you. Or there's certain things too. Like you're not gonna build a community with the Fortune 100 on LinkedIn. They're not gonna talk to you, right?
Hmm.
So you're gonna have to go somewhere else to get in front of them or to get their attention to be able to build that relationship, right?
Right.
And so that would look different. In which case, a lot of times those are private mastermind dinners, right? I mean, that's how you make that happen. They're
Hmm.
they're not going to be getting online, and they're too busy to be online. They're in meetings 9 to 5, and then they get up
Sure.
at 6, and they basically delegate and answer emails between 6 and 9 a.m. And then they do it again either late at night from 10 to midnight or right after work from 5 to 7. Like it's a different, you got to really understand your audience. You got to know when they work, how they work, where they hang out, obviously everything that makes them tick, their fears, their frustrations, their wants, their aspirations.
Hmm.
So once you have that down, again, this is foundational work, right? You can't start selling and understand the basics there,
Right.
because if you don't, how do you figure out where to go, what to do, right?
Yeah. Agreed. All
Yeah,
right. So that was good. Can you share with us what's the one online website, tool, resource, or app that you personally cannot live without in your business?
well, because I'm B2B, it would be email. So flat
Can't
out
do without
email.
emails. All
Yeah, I
right.
mean it still works, and email's great. Email still gets in the inbox, and majority of businesses still just use email, even though that we have Slack, even though we have, the email's still
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
It's not going to go away. It's been around for 20 years. It's not going anywhere. For B2B, it's the best way to get in touch with people. And then maybe my phone, like pick up the phone,
Hmm.
LinkedIn. Those would be the top three. I mean, really, at the end of the day.
Okay. So
Yeah.
you mentioned that you have a whole bookcase of books there. Can you maybe pick one or two of those books that you've read either recently or long ago that have had a really good impact on you?
Sure. Yeah. Here, sure. There's a couple here I'll grab right away that are fantastic. Let me see here. Here are Here really great. So the first three I saw in there that would be really good. So I think this is a classic, The Ultimate B2B Sales Machine by
All
Chet Holmes. So
right.
Chet Holmes is unfortunately passed away. But I mean, like, if you look at this book, I've got like notes everywhere in it. It's still super relevant today as it was yesterday. Really good for B2B.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Double Double is another great one by Cameron Harold.
Mm-hmm.
So Cameron Harold coached me for a little while. He's a fantastic coach.
Mm-hmm.
He's the gentleman who helped scale companies like Wayne Hunter Got Junk. And there's all kinds of like awesome stuff in here, especially at an operations level. So like if you're struggling operational, it's a really good one. And then
Right.
this was one of the books that really blew my mind. Like I had read a lot of sales books over the years. And this one was something really new that came out. I'd say I read it about 3 years ago. And then it became really big about 2 years ago. And it's Chris Voss, called Never Split the Difference.
Mm-hmm.
And he's an ex FBI negotiator. So he would
Oh,
like do
wow.
hostage negotiations to get people to like release people they captured and were trying to get money for and threaten to kill them.
Right.
But he took all those things that he learned in the FBI and applied it to sales and marketing and negotiating. And there's definitely some things that gave me those aha moments where I was like, oh, I've been doing that wrong for a long time. And an example would be a really shitty sales technique that people were taught for years. It was a bad habit of mine, was trying to get a whole bunch of little yeses,
Mhm.
to get the final big yes. Is something a lot of salespeople have taught for years. And it's a big misdemeanor,
Mhm.
because he talks about that you actually want to get people to say no. And it's true. When you allow them to say no, you actually give them freedom to actually move forward in the sales process. But people know when you're trying to get them to do a bunch of yeses. And when I really think about it, when I analyze, I was like, it's so true. And once I learned how to allow people to say no, my sales really improved a lot, because
Right.
you're enabling them to say no. I almost encourage people to say no today. I actually ask them. I always tell them, I'm like, hey, if it's not a hell yes, like if it's just like, yeah, or I'm interested, or if it's not a hell yes for you, like deep down in your belly, you're like, this feels so right, then it's a no. And I
Right.
want us to both acknowledge that.
Mhm.
Let's just, I want to give you permission. You can say no. And I think it's
Yeah.
important you say no. And also, I'm going to be looking for no. We should find ever a reason why we should not work together first before we work together. Are you cool with that kind of attitude and thinking about it? And
Mm.
then people are like, well, yeah, right. And then you can allow them to say no, and they kind of free up, right? And they
Mhm.
relax. And then they're like, okay, cool. Like, this guy's not going to try and close me. He's not
Right.
trying to look for a whole bunch of little yeses, right? Like these, like, don't you want more leads? Well, of course I want more leads, right? Don't you want more money? Like, tell me what you're going to do all that money, all that kind of crappy stuff that goes
Mhm.
on. You just have a real conversation,
Yeah.
like just
Real.
a real, yeah, just be real.
Mhm.
Go
All
figure.
right. Now, can you share with us, Matthew, what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now? Either something that you're really excited about, maybe you're working on to develop yourself or even to develop your business.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited about two books that I'm writing.
Ah,
So I've been I know I should have written books sooner, but I didn't, just because it's hard. We move away from things that are hard. But I think it's been really good to actually like collect my thoughts and put it on paper. It's brought more clarity to my processes. So at a personal development level, it's been very, very good. And then I'm excited to share it afterwards too. So
mhm,
I think anybody who wants to create more clarity for themselves, regardless of whether they actually want to publish something or not. Like, I don't even care if this thing never gets published, to tell you the truth. It will get published on Amazon as being self-published, but the benefits of just writing and figuring out how to find clarity with my own thoughts or systems has been
mhm.
very, very helpful and useful. Everybody should do one. Everyone should try to write one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. All right. Okay, so where can our viewers who watch this amazing episode find you online, Matthew? They're looking to up their sales. Maybe they want to work with you hire as a coach, or they just probably just want to join your community and follow some of the wonderful nuggets that you share weekly and daily. Where can they find you online?
Sure. So there's really three places you can go that are pretty easy. So one is, if you are looking for help to grow your B2B business, then you can go to automationwolf.com.
Mm-hmm.
There's a video there. I encourage people to watch the video, and then if it makes sense to you and you're serious, you can always book some time with me. So
Okay.
there's nothing else you can do there. It's a single page. That's all you can do by design.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other blog. There's something else to consume. And then if you want to join my private community, most people are not accepted into it. You would go to gadvantage.com. So that's the letter G. It just stands for genius. And so we get to stand on the shoulders of other geniuses. I interview super smart people there all the time and give all kinds of swap files for people to be there. It does cost money. It's not free. But you can apply to go there. And then, of course, if you just want to connect with me, the easiest place to connect with me, where I am active the most socially, would be LinkedIn. And you can just search my name, Matthew Hunt, with two T's, and you'll find me pretty quickly. Those are the three places to get in touch with me.
All right. Sounds good. Okay, well, that's it for today. Is there any other nugget of genius you'd like to share with us? Maybe a quote or a saying that kind of helps to propel you in sales on days when you may not feel as motivated and excited and enthusiastic that you could share with our viewers today?
Uh, I think that at the end of the day, all of this stuff is great, but not to get all woo woo, try to have a little bit of fun with your life. I mean,
Mhm.
and be happy. I mean, as far as I know, there isn't another one, and this is not a dress rehearsal. So try to find whatever your unique ability is, and laugh and surround yourself with people that make you laugh and feel loved. I mean, all this other stuff doesn't matter. Who
True.
cares? Who
Yeah.
cares?
Very nice. All right. Well, thank you so much, Matthew, for sharing with us today. I'm definitely going to work on figuring out that broadcasting recording feature for sure. But for the purpose of today, we broadcasted early. I hope you guys get to tune in and watch the video. And please leave comments, or any questions that you may have. I'm going to tag Matthew in the post so that if you have any questions or anything at all, he can, be notified as well and be definitely able to jump on and answer any questions that we may not have covered that you may have. I'm sure he'd love to reach out and answer those questions.
Be happy to.
All right. So thanks again. All right. Bye,
Thank you.
guys.
Bye.